Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Space Age Electronics Podcast. I'm Kasey, the West Central Business Development Manager, and today on the podcast I have Kyle Jarvenpaa, who is the Northeast Business Development Manager for Space Age Electronics. Kyle, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Kasey. Glad to be a part of it. I've watched the other ones that you've done now, so kind of hopping on and being able to hang out with you virtually here. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I actually always look forward to talking to you. You're kind of a wealth of knowledge with a lot of things, but more specifically with Space Age, you've been here forever.
Almost forever, probably a few years shy of forever. I'm on 11 years now. This month, actually, December is 11 years that I've been at the company. I started at Space Age in one of our fabrication facilities. I was doing shipping, receiving, assembly, a little bit of metal fab here and there. And then I moved over to our main office location where I started doing a little bit more of the wiring assemblies, learning kind of how we assembled our smoke control panels, got into customer service, and that was all within like the first 2 years kind of. And then we developed a regional development approach, which is kind of what we have now, or what you and I are doing. But early on, we've always had outside salespeople that focused on different areas of the business, whether it be like distribution, so all the store locations that carry our products, or OEM stuff for the various OEM relationships we have. But we've always had the country covered, I guess you could say, but people were covering much bigger territories, and we just, I guess, weren't doing the best job covering and providing support the way that we are now. But yeah, within the last 2 years or so, with the addition of you and Bill Crowley, we've got the whole country covered. So
yeah, it's an interesting time in Space Age, and it's really fun actually to work with. I don't know if you have seen all of the other podcasts we've done, but one that should be coming up soon is with Mike. Mike's a wealth of knowledge with a lot of stuff, especially smoke control. And one thing that I know that you're kind of my go-to for is NFPA 241.
Yeah, that's been a hot topic here in the Northeast for the past couple of years now. Really, I mean, and that kind of comes based off from just, I guess, being in the Northeast, there's a lot of the fire alarm industry here, right? NFPA is here. A lot of the fire alarm manufacturers originated out of here. And, as far as NFPA 241 as a standard, being that it's the standard for safeguarding construction projects from fire risk and among other things. We've had a lot of high profile fires here over the past, I guess, just decade, we'll call it. And there's been more attention to that particular standard here on, just what can we do to make construction sites safer in the, building construction phase. So fire departments and AHJs here have really started to pay attention to that standard, even though it's existed since the 30s, but really only recently has it got a lot of attention.
And is the attention merely just because there has been more construction fires and temporary building fires, or what other things have really brought more attention to NFPA 241?
It's definitely one of the bigger ones. I would say just the sheer volume of construction nowadays, how fast our cities are developing and our urban areas are developing. You've got more and more people, you've got more and more projects. So naturally, it's just, what can we do to make these areas and these projects safer? So I think that's part of it too.
Well, I didn't know it existed before I came and worked at Space Age. It makes sense though. Here I live in Salt Lake, and I can remember a handful of times that there's been construction fires. Now it's a little bit different out here because we don't build our buildings as close together because we don't need to. But hasn't there been a few fires in your area where like a construction fire's happened and like the building next to it gets destroyed? Or
yeah, that's actually like a big part of, as far as NFPA 241 goes, and the way that the different jurisdictions look at it, and how the fire department looks at it from a fire department response is, you've got the site, obviously, that has its 241 plan written, and it's everything's documented as to how the fire department would even have a response to an incident at that location. But that is one of the things that they think about, and they look at. Part of the risk assessment is, well, what structures are around this construction site? What else do we have to be considerate of when we're rolling in. Is there an apartment building next door that have people sleeping? Is there a mall? Is there, like, what is around the project and what needs to be taken into consideration when we even come up with an impairment plan? So that is a big part of it. And even out where you are, I mean, the buildings might not be as close together, but regardless, I mean, you've got a construction site that's however big it might be with however many people on it from a day-to-day basis. So it's just as important from that perspective, even, from the perspective of what's around the site. They're equally as important.
Yeah, it's I'm glad that there's a standard. I have a few buddies who are in the like OSHA fields and in the life safety part of the business where like they're protecting like for fall protection and hard hats, things like that. And uh, they're just really glad that there's a standard that they can follow as well as that it's something that can be enforceable. So Space Age distributes a product, the West 3 equipment.
Yes.
You definitely, I mean, how many systems have you actually helped commission yourself?
I mean, upwards of probably a couple dozen myself. I mean, over the last 3 years that we've been providing the system with our partners to construction sites, it's been about 3 years or so now. I mean, in the Northeast region, so all of New England down to the DC area, we've probably got about 60 different projects that have the West system deployed on it or had the West system deployed on it in various sizes. So it could be a small project, could be very large projects. Of those, I've personally been involved with at least the training and initial setup of probably 20 to 24 of them. And that's been in the beginning to just familiarize myself with it and get the knowledge that I need in order to, one, sell it, but two, support it. And really understand that world that I was never a part of before. High rise and commercial construction was never anything that was even on my radar prior to having this product to support.
It's well, it definitely makes sense for that specific market. And geez, I'm glad that you've taken the time to go out and do those because I've texted you, asked you questions a lot about it. Now, what type of customers or like what type of companies do you see using this the most? Is it general contractors? Is it insurance companies? Is it fire departments who are buying it? Who really buys this?
It's typically the general contractor as the, I'm going to say, quote unquote, end user. So whether the general contractor or the developer is acquiring the system themselves, or if it's being put into a specification from either the GC level, like, hey, this is something we want on our project, but we're going to push it down to the subcontractors, or from an insurance perspective, the building owner has their builder's risk insurance, and perhaps they're requiring something to be put in place, or even from, you mentioned fire departments, they would never purchase the system, but there's certainly a lot of jurisdictions where the fire department is paying a lot of attention to what's out there and available, whether it be a hardwired system put in place or a wireless system put in place. They're starting to require, hey, something needs to be put in place during the construction process to protect this building and the people within it better than if not. So everyone's kind of got a stake in it, but I would say for the most part, who's using it and acquiring it, it's going to be the general contractors and developers. And then from Space Age's perspective, our customer base, the fire alarm contractors, that's typically who I'm working with to provide the systems to the projects. Our general customer base is who we're talking to on a day-to-day basis. So it's just become part of my toolbox of offerings that I've been educating them on, and they've been going out and having the conversations with electrical contractors and general contractors and providing the system to them.
Yeah, it's that's who I kind of prefer to sell it to. I mean, it's a system. We have the product. You give us money, we'll give you the product. But also because it is a system, and I usually try to focus on like the fire experts in the area to be the one supporting it as well as selling it or leasing it out to someone.
Well, it's definitely a it's helpful for us because I'll speak just on terms of myself for a minute. I'm one person, right? So I can go throughout the territory that I have and that I'm responsible for, and I can promote the product, but I can only do so much. So from a sales perspective and growing the product line and the awareness of the product, and even educating on 241 as a code and topic, I can only do so much. So I go out and educate our customer base, who is also going out and educating their customer base, the rest of the industry on it, people that I don't generally talk to. So the concept and the idea is, I'm going to go and duplicate my efforts, and I'm going to arm our customers with hopefully the knowledge and the product and their toolbox of offerings to go out and do what I've been doing. So it starts to grow. And over the last 3 years, that's where the success has been found in this region, is really working together with our partners to educate the industry and provide the solution.
It's you mentioned, training, not training, but like educating space age customers. And I think that's something that I didn't expect to be doing as much with space age. Well, first of all, half the meetings I go to, they've never heard of space age because I'm in the mountain region of the United States and space age is on the East Coast. But also, like, really teaching, teaching customers about like new things in the industry and new codes coming up. Like I've talked a lot about emergency communication systems, two-way, and then FPA 241. How has that education process gone? Do they like hearing it? Are they surprised to hear a space age, like technically a sales rep, talking about this stuff?
Surprised, I wouldn't say surprised. No, I would say that if anything, in my personal experiences of actually being out and talking and educating people on this particular topic, is that they're very appreciative of it, because one, it's either something they've never heard of before, and even from a fire department perspective, they didn't know it's something that they could even enforce. So
That's a good point.
Getting down into the codes, and then what requires NFPA 241, and if their state's an NFPA 1 state. And from that perspective, it's been pretty rewarding, because you have people tell you like, okay, this was great, I didn't know this, this is something I should be looking at. And then from our customers' perspective, it's a business opportunity, so that's been good too for them.
Well, it's definitely different ways to get revenue, as well as to like you said, it's another tool in your toolbox that we have, as well as it's another tool that the customers have to actually, some are now just finally actually interacting with the fire departments, which they probably never did before. So it's been kind of cool, and I really like you doing it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it works out well. And I mean, every crowd that you speak to, doesn't matter the topic, but every crowd that you speak to, everyone's got their own perspective of looking at whatever that topic might be. If you're from the enforcement side, you've got that perspective. If you're from the design and architectural side, you have that perspective. And if you're from the systems side, you're providing a solution and you have that perspective. So what I try to do is I kind of try to hit the topic from all sides enough so that everybody gets something out of it, and they understand that their role in achieving that code compliance, because it really does take everybody with everything, not just with NFPA 241 and this construction site safety, but it really does take everybody to achieve it and make it successful.
Okay. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I learned more than I thought I would about you, as well as kind of more about the education levels we do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about whatever. So let's make it happen.
Well, guys, this has been another edition of the Space Age Electronics Podcast. Remember, if you want to find out any information about Space Age, you can always go to our website at 1sae.com, or you can always reach out to any of the BDMs on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for watching this edition of the Space Age Electronics Podcast.